So this is my peyote documentary. So the sacred role of peyote in indigenous culture. So peyote has played a huge function in the Mesoamerican and Native American spiritual traditions for centuries. It is used by the Olmec, the Maya, and Aztec civilizations. Um, Peyote has changed into not simply only a plant, but a sacred medium for religions and used as a recovery ritual. Uh, Archaeological proof in the consisting murals and grave discoveries reveal a long-standing ceremonial importance of the peyote plant. Francisco J. Carrard et al., neurologist who explored peyote and cultural scientific significance, highlights how these ceremonies have been used to seek guidance, recuperation, and non-secular clarity. His studies attracted attention and pharmacological and symbolic dimensions of peyote in historical societies. Um, in modern instances, peyote remains middle thing of spiritual existence for plenty Native Americans. A professor at the University of Southern California discussed how the peyote is used for contemporary ceremonies concerning prayer, tuning, and guided reflection. His paintings connect peyote to personal restoration and communal, non-secular stories, in particular in the form of criminal protections granted throughout the native traditions. Weston Lauber, an anthropologist, and was a Western lecturer, and he took peyote rituals intensively and kind of studied it a little bit. So in the peyote cult, he documents how peyote is used to develop a formal and religious movement, as well as having a foundation for the Native American church. Bear offers significant interviews with Native practitioners, giving his work treasured um, throughout, fashioned in a Western educational framework. He also explores legal demanding situations faced through peyote customers, attributing that many prohibitors to breed justice against the indigenous and spiritual practices. Um, so what are peyote rituals? They are ceremonies which are practiced by indigenous people through North America, and many members of the Native American Church in the United States and Canada also participate. These rituals involve ceremonial use of peyote, a small cactus containing mescaline, and a natural hallucinogen. Um, it is a natural hallucinogen. So, some key aspects of in peyote rituals. The rituals are deeply spiritual and used for healing, prayer, and communication with the divine, seeking guidance or visions. Kind of just some historical things. During the colonial period, an exclusive point of view, the 16th century Franciscan Ferrar recorded indigenous practices with Florentine Codex, and he explains that he just goes on explaining about how it's rarely categorized and the colonial powers are considered to suppress indigenous spirituality. In the war for non-secular freedom, peyote surrounded to keep for these days, around these days. According to the University of Oklahoma Press, peyote is legal and spiritual representation stays contested to if it should be a drug or if it should not be a drug. In the end, peyote stands as a symbol for religious continuity and cultural resistance. Its sacred use is deeply rooted in historical and cutting-edge traditions. It is documented throughout a numerous range of assets from clinical to historical studies, primarily bills and living artifacts, that they are presented and offer a multi-dimensional information of peyote's enduring importance. And there's my big bibliography. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the year.